So we're making a video about controversial comedy. But before that, how did we get to this idea? You see, at the beginning, the four of us were trying to figure out what subject to base our video on. I suggested making it about online film critique, which was an idea so good my teammates immediately started looking for better video topics. Danya wanted it to be about 12 Angry Men. And speaking of controversial comedy, did you know they're making an all-female remake of 12 Angry Men? They're calling it 12 Women. Hafsa wanted to make it about Robert Downey Jr. and Hunger Games and Marvel and about 7 other things. And Hajar, I don't know, she was just there. So I've got 4 different people with differing interests and no one willing to compromise. What do? You do the obvious thing and completely base your presentation on cinematic masterpiece White Chicks, directed by Keenan Ivory Wayans, starring Shawn Wayans and Marlon Wayans, produced by Shawn Wayans and Marlon Wayans, written by Shawn Wayans and White Chicks was and still is a unique experience in Hollywood comedy. It successfully managed to get a ton of controversy through a simple concept. What if 2 black FBI agents pose as white women in suburban America? Kind of an interesting twist on the body cop comedy genre, and this is what makes it unique. Individual elements of this film have been done before. Whiteface has been seen multiple times by people like Eddie Murphy and Michael Jackson, and even the cross-dressing part was done recently, through stuff like Mrs. Doubtfire, starring Robin Williams as a reject Golden Girl. But this was the first time where a film combined the two, and that's what made it so controversial at the time. Now, before I hand you off to Danya to speak about the controversy behind the film, there is something that we have to talk about first. And that thing is blackface, which you obviously need to bring up. Now, we do not have the time for a full deep dive on the topic, but I did want to have a quick look at a modern example.
Lady lost a kid. You about to cross some fucking lines.
Guys, relax and
You know what? Fuck that, man. I'm sick of this koala hugging nigga telling me some...
For 400 years, that word has kept us down.
Tropic Thunder is a 2008 satirical comedy directed by Ben Stiller. The film is about a group of actors making a war film. A movie inside of a movie. And the movie is great.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
What do you mean?
Check it out. Dustin Hoffman, Rain Man, look retarded, act retarded, not retarded. Count 2 picks, cheated cards. Autistic, show, not retarded. You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
I remember when I first watched this movie on TV as a kid. I had flipped the channel halfway through the film, and at some point this character, Kirk Lazarus, reveals himself to be none other than Robert Downey Jr.
Not Sergeant Lincoln, Luther.
We gotta roll out.
Lord of my Father O'Malley. Put Neil Armstrong. I think I might be nobody.
Mr. Iron Man himself was in blackface. Now this obviously caused a huge controversy at the time. It is, after all, blackface in 2008. But what critics refused to accept is that the film used blackface to point out how wrong it is, also using it as a tool to criticize actors who use method acting that do basically anything to win awards. And this was enforced at the end of the movie, where Downey's arc is completed as he ends his reliance on racist stereotypes to win acclaim. And I think it was done pretty respectfully. I mean, he didn't even say the N-word in the movie. Speaking of, I said the N-word once, and Danya told me, "Faisal, how could you say that? You're racist." I said, "I'm not racist, I love black people." They pick my cotton for me. But yeah, Tropic Thunder was great. Danya didn't like it though. Speaking of Danya, I think it's about time we give up.
People love White Chicks nowadays. It's pretty much a cult classic. Many people quote and rewatch it all the time, and it became sort of a tradition. But this wasn't the case when it first released into theaters back in 2004. It instead gained dislike from both viewers and critics. People did not love this film, and it was considered one of the worst movies of 2004.
When it first came out, you know, the response was really not positive in terms of reviews, and people were like oh, you were in White Chicks. It was at the time not cool.
But some calling it nothing but a cheap ripoff of the 1959 film Some Like It Hot. Many reviewers and journalists' articles berated the movie and hated it for its offensive humor and premise, with one author being quoted as saying, "Most movies require some suspension of disbelief, but White Chicks requires something more radical than that. A full frontal lobotomy might be a good place to start." The movie was disliked for many things, but the main controversies it had were its use of cross-dressing and whiteface. As you may know by now, people criticized the movie's use of cross-dressing as enforcing the stereotypical image of what a woman is like, where instead of empowering women by putting men in their shoes, it reduces the female experience down to shopping, trading makeup and perfume tips, and checking out the cute guys at the party. Another thing people criticized is the lack of any meaningful growth in the main characters, that instead of making surprising discoveries about themselves and their new identities, either as women or as wives of a privileged class, Marcus and Kevin seem just as blandly insensitive at the end of the film as at the beginning, though Marcus does learn to listen when his wife tries to talk to him. Unlike the movie I already mentioned, Some Like It Hot, where the protagonists were able to enjoy their disguised selves and discover things about themselves.
That was hard. That almost killed us. Makeup movies, till they learn how to digitally do it, special effect wise, that's a lot of work. Everybody's like, do it White Chicks too. I'm like, fuck yourself. You do it White Chicks too. I'm doing black man movies.
Okay, be honest. When you think of White Chicks, you probably think of disguise, listening in the car, or probably the chaos in general. But today, we're talking about something just as important, which is the fashion. Because in the movie, the outfits are basically part of the joke. First, let's talk about the early 2000s style. The Wilson sisters dressed like peak rich celebrities, like Britney Spears, Paris Hilton, with low-rise jeans, miniskirts, crop tops, and the Ballard tracksuits. So basically, outfits that look cute but also looks like you cannot sit down in them. The movie exaggerates this style on purpose to make it look a bit ridiculous, and it kind of works, to be honest. So next, fashion in this movie is all about the money. So, if your outfit doesn't scream "I'm rich," you're not even trying to fit in. Designer brands and luxury shopping surrounded the characters from every single aspect of the movie. Shopping is who they are, and there is this feminine look about going on shopping sprees. Everything is pink and perfect, from hair to makeup. And the movie makes you think, is this even realistic? Because maintaining the level of this perfection all the time is definitely exhausting. So now, it's funny, really funny, when the FBI agents dress up like the Wilson sisters. They struggle. Walking in these heels is impossible. And getting into these size clothes, no, it's very stressful and uncomfortable for them. And that's the joke. But it also shows something very real. They try to look perfect, but it actually takes a lot of effort and sometimes a lot of discomfort. So the movie is basically saying the whole image of beauty and perfection is kind of a performance. And that leads us to the main idea, that the fashion in White Chicks is a satire. It kind of makes fun of beauty standards, the wealth and privilege, and the idea of how looks can define you and it can reshape who you are. It shows that identity can be a costume, something you put on, not necessarily who you really are. So yeah, outfits are funny, but they're also making a point. And after watching that movie, I've learned one thing, that I will never complain about wearing comfortable clothes again.
Okay, let's talk about racism, but like in a way that won't get us all cancelled like presentation. Racism in comedy isn't just about what is said, it's about who is allowed to say it, how it is framed, and what the audience is expected to laugh at. Dark comedy often plays with racism by crossing lines on purpose, but crossing a line can do two very different things. First, it can reinforce stereotype, laughing at a group, or it can expose stereotype, laughing at the idea itself. The tension between those two is where the discomfort and the meaning comes from. So here's the thing about White Chicks. It's chaotic, it's ridiculous, and somehow it gets away with a lot. The entire movie is built on the insane idea of the two black FBI agents who became the rich white women. Nobody really questioned it, which is funny, but also kind of suspicious. Like, is the disguise that good, or do people just see what they expect to see? And that's where it gets interesting, because the movie is constantly playing with stereotypes. Rich white girls talk a certain way, act a certain way, care about certain things, and the film pushes that to the extreme. But at the same time, the main characters are also exaggerating those behaviors so much that it becomes obvious it's all performance. So who's the jokers actually on? Are we laughing at the white stereotypes, at the guys pretending, or at how easy it is to believe all of it? And that is the uncomfortable part, because the movie doesn't give you a clear answer. It just keeps you going, joke after joke, until you stop questioning it and just laugh, which is kind of how comedy works sometimes. It moves so fast, you don't always stop to think, oh wait, should I be laughing at this? If some movies makes you uncomfortable on purpose, White Chicks makes you comfortable and then sneaks the discomfort in anyway. So yeah, maybe it is not just a dumb comedy. Maybe it is dumb comedy that accidentally exposes how weird our ideas about race actually are.
Making jokes about serious topics can be practical and very informative, but it could also be very funny.
Then you've made a distinction between what is okay to poke fun at and what isn't. Either it's all okay, or none of it is.
So yeah, take a joke and you'll be okay.